Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Today we are taking a closer look at one of the most closely watched political developments involving Iraq and the United States. A meeting between former U.S. President Donald Trump and Iraqi Prime Minister al-Zaidi has attracted significant attention from political observers, financial analysts, and Iraqi dinar followers around the world. While much of the public discussion has focused on the images released from the Oval Office and the friendly interaction between the two leaders, experienced observers suggest that the most meaningful conversations often occur away from the cameras. In today's analysis, we will examine what this meeting could mean for Iraq's economic future, the country's financial reform agenda, and why investors and dinar followers should pay close attention to official developments over the coming days and weeks. One of the first things that stands out from this meeting is the difference between public diplomacy and private negotiations. In international politics, official photo opportunities are often designed to demonstrate cooperation, strengthen diplomatic relationships, and reassure both domestic and international audiences that communication between governments remains constructive. These ceremonial appearances rarely reveal the full scope of discussions taking place behind closed doors. That observation is important because major economic agreements, security cooperation, banking reforms, and strategic investment discussions are generally handled during private sessions involving senior advisors, treasury officials, central bank representatives, diplomats, and policy experts. These conversations are where detailed planning occurs, while the public portion primarily serves as a symbolic display of unity and partnership. From an economic perspective, Iraq continues to pursue several long-term reform initiatives aimed at modernizing its financial system. These include banking sector modernization, improvements in payment infrastructure, anti-money laundering compliance, financial transparency, customs modernization, digital payment expansion, and attracting greater foreign investment. Any high-level discussions between Iraqi and American officials could potentially touch on these broader strategic objectives, although the specific details would only become clear through official announcements. The comments suggesting that the real meetings are happening behind closed doors reflect a common characteristic of international diplomacy. Important negotiations involving trade, investment, banking cooperation, and economic policy are rarely finalized in front of television cameras. Instead, governments typically release carefully prepared statements only after agreements have progressed through multiple stages of discussion and review. For Iraqi dinar followers, this distinction is extremely important. Public appearances can signal improving diplomatic relations, but they should not automatically be interpreted as confirmation of immediate monetary policy changes. Currency policy remains the responsibility of Iraq's monetary authorities, particularly the Central Bank of Iraq, working alongside the country's broader economic institutions and government leadership. Another point attracting attention is the apparent positive chemistry between Trump and al-Zaidi during their public interaction. Diplomatic relationships often benefit when political leaders demonstrate mutual respect and comfortable communication. Positive personal rapport can help facilitate future discussions, encourage cooperation, and reduce political friction during negotiations. Throughout history, personal relationships between world leaders have sometimes accelerated cooperation on investment, trade, infrastructure, defense, and economic partnerships. However, successful diplomacy ultimately depends on institutional agreements rather than personalities alone. Government agencies, ministries, central banks, legislatures, and international organizations all play significant roles in implementing long-term policy decisions. The reported jokes exchanged during the meeting, including comments about al-Zaidi's youth and appearance, contributed to an atmosphere that appeared relaxed and cordial. Public displays of friendliness can send positive diplomatic signals, especially during periods when countries are seeking closer strategic cooperation. For international investors, political stability and constructive diplomatic relationships often reduce uncertainty. Markets generally respond more positively when governments demonstrate cooperation rather than confrontation. Stability encourages investment planning, infrastructure development, and long-term business commitments. Iraq has spent years working to improve its investment environment. Economic diversification remains a priority as policymakers seek to reduce dependence on oil revenues while encouraging growth in manufacturing, agriculture, technology, transportation, logistics, tourism, and financial services. International partnerships, particularly with major global economies, can support these objectives by providing technical expertise, investment opportunities, financial assistance, and institutional cooperation. The news paragraph also suggests that more information may emerge once Iraqi officials return home and begin communicating the outcomes of their meetings. This expectation aligns with how international diplomacy typically unfolds. Initial meetings establish relationships and discuss priorities, while follow-up announcements often occur after government agencies review proposals and determine implementation strategies. For Iraqi Dinar observers, patience remains essential. Financial reforms rarely occur overnight. Significant policy changes generally involve legislative procedures, regulatory adjustments, technical preparations, banking coordination, and communication with international financial institutions. Over recent years, Iraq has introduced numerous reforms designed to strengthen confidence in its financial system. These efforts include expanding electronic payments, improving banking supervision, enhancing anti-money laundering controls, strengthening foreign exchange management, and encouraging broader financial inclusion among Iraqi citizens. Each individual reform may appear modest when viewed separately. However, collectively they contribute to building a stronger institutional foundation capable of supporting sustainable economic growth. One area frequently discussed among Dinar followers is the relationship between political developments and monetary policy. While political stability certainly influences investor confidence, exchange rate decisions involve numerous additional considerations. Central banks evaluate inflation trends, foreign exchange reserves, trade balances, fiscal policy, money supply, banking sector stability, capital flows, and overall macroeconomic conditions before implementing significant monetary adjustments. Therefore, even if diplomatic relations improve substantially, currency policy continues to depend upon economic fundamentals rather than political symbolism alone. This balanced perspective helps distinguish analytical observation from speculation. When examining high-profile diplomatic meetings, it is useful to consider the broader strategic context. Iraq occupies an important geopolitical position within the Middle East. Its energy resources, transportation networks, regional partnerships, and growing economy make it an increasingly significant participant in international economic discussions. The United States has maintained long-standing interests in Iraq's stability, security, and economic development. Cooperation between the two countries has evolved over time to include security coordination, energy investment, educational exchanges, private sector partnerships, infrastructure support, and financial cooperation. If discussions during these meetings addressed economic modernization, banking reform, or investment opportunities, those conversations could contribute to Iraq's longer-term development objectives. However, responsible financial analysis requires emphasizing that until official government statements provide specific policy details, conclusions should remain measured and evidence-based. One interesting aspect mentioned in the commentary is the repeated suggestion that Trump expressed support for al-Zaidi's leadership. Political endorsements and public praise can strengthen diplomatic optics, but government policy ultimately reflects institutional decision-making rather than personal compliments. Markets generally pay greater attention to signed agreements, enacted legislation, published economic strategies, official memorandums of understanding, and verified policy announcements than to informal remarks made during ceremonial events. For Iraqi businesses, international cooperation has practical implications extending beyond currency discussions. Improved diplomatic relationships can encourage foreign direct investment, expand trade opportunities, support infrastructure financing, and increase international confidence in Iraq's economic direction. Investment decisions depend heavily upon predictability. Investors seek countries demonstrating legal certainty, political stability, transparent regulation, efficient banking systems, and reliable institutions. Each successful diplomatic engagement potentially contributes to strengthening Iraq's international reputation as an investment destination. Another important consideration involves Iraq's ongoing banking modernization efforts. Financial institutions continue working toward greater digitalization, improved compliance standards, and stronger integration with international banking systems. These reforms are essential for facilitating international trade, cross-border investment, correspondent banking relationships, and efficient payment processing. Meetings involving senior government officials often provide opportunities to discuss technical cooperation, supporting these objectives. For followers of Iraqi economic developments, banking modernization may ultimately prove more significant than short-term speculation surrounding exchange rates, because stronger financial institutions create lasting foundations for economic growth. It is also worth remembering that Iraq's economy has demonstrated resilience despite facing numerous challenges over recent decades. Rising energy production, infrastructure investment, private sector development, and institutional reforms continue shaping the country's economic trajectory. Although challenges remain, progress is often measured through gradual improvements rather than dramatic overnight transformations. This perspective encourages realistic expectations while recognizing meaningful advancements when they occur. Short-term market reactions to political meetings can sometimes be influenced by headlines rather than substantive policy developments. Investors should therefore distinguish between media narratives and official government actions. Responsible analysis focuses on verified information released through official channels, including government ministries, central banks, finance ministries, and recognized international institutions. Such an approach reduces the likelihood of reacting emotionally to speculation or unconfirmed reports. Another factor deserving attention is international cooperation on financial governance. Iraq continues working alongside international organizations to strengthen regulatory standards, improve transparency, and expand institutional capacity. These initiatives support broader economic objectives, including attracting investment, improving creditworthiness, strengthening banking confidence, and facilitating international business relationships. Diplomatic engagement with major economic partners complements these domestic reform efforts by encouraging technical cooperation and knowledge sharing. The suggestion that additional developments may emerge next week should be viewed as an expectation rather than a certainty. International negotiations often require considerable time before producing publicly announced outcomes. Some meetings lead directly to agreements, others establish working groups that continue discussions for months before reaching final decisions. Still others simply strengthen diplomatic relationships without producing immediate policy changes. Therefore, Iraqi Dinar followers should evaluate future announcements carefully, while avoiding assumptions unsupported by official evidence. One encouraging aspect of recent Iraqi economic policy has been the government's increasing emphasis on modernization and diversification, reducing reliance upon cash transactions, expanding electronic payment systems, improving tax administration, modernizing customs procedures, supporting private enterprise, and strengthening banking oversight all contribute to creating a more competitive economy. These structural improvements often receive less public attention than exchange rate speculation, but may ultimately have greater long-term significance. Economic transformation typically occurs through consistent institutional progress rather than isolated headline events. As international observers analyze the meeting between Trump and al-Zaidi, attention will likely focus upon whether any follow-up statements reference investment cooperation, energy projects, banking initiatives, infrastructure financing, or broader strategic partnerships. Such announcements would provide more substantive information regarding the practical outcomes of these diplomatic engagements. Until then, maintaining balanced expectations remains the most responsible approach. From the perspective of Iraqi Dinar followers, the broader lesson is clear. Political relationships matter, diplomatic cooperation matters, economic reform matters, banking modernization matters, investment confidence matters. Yet each represents one component within a much larger economic framework. No single meeting, photograph, or public statement independently determines the future direction of Iraq's currency or economy. Instead, Sustainable progress results from coordinated policy implementation across multiple government institutions working together over extended periods. Looking ahead, analysts will continue monitoring official communications from Iraqi authorities, the Central Bank of Iraq, the Ministry of Finance, and relevant U.S. agencies for indications of expanded cooperation. Attention will also remain focused on investment initiatives, banking reforms, fiscal policy developments, and institutional modernization efforts. These factors collectively provide a more comprehensive understanding of Iraq's evolving economic landscape than any individual headline. Ultimately, the significance of this meeting will be measured not by the ceremonial photographs or friendly exchanges alone, but by any concrete policy initiatives that follow. Diplomatic goodwill can create opportunities, but lasting economic progress depends upon implementation, institutional coordination, transparent governance, and continued reform. For Iraqi Dinar followers, the most constructive approach remains staying informed through credible sources, evaluating official announcements carefully, and understanding that meaningful financial reform is typically a gradual process supported by consistent policy development rather than speculation. Thank you for watching today's Iraqi Dinar news update. If you appreciate responsible, balanced, and factual analysis of Iraq's economy and the Iraqi Dinar, be sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video so you never miss future updates. As always, this content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It should not be considered financial, investment, or trading advice, and viewers should conduct their own research and consult qualified financial professionals before making any investment decisions.